Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Oh, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live and ready on a Tuesday here for you on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your beautiful evening. It is raining like cats and dogs out here in Denver, Colorado. We're live on Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social media platforms known to man to keep you up to date on future and past shows. All you got to do is like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button. 600 subscribers and counting to getting to the road to 1K. We've already just hit over 500 followers on TikTok, and we are still on the road to get to 1K. So we got a lot going on, and we got a lot to unpack. I am excited, and I'm so glad with all of you guys here to join with us. Close to the bottom half of the hour, Willard Thomas is going to be joining us, Locked on Diamondbacks. We're going to be talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks, the state of the NL West, and how the competition's brewing up in the National League as a whole. So, first and foremost, the championships are set. Boston against Indiana, Dallas against Minnesota, Edmonton against Dallas, and New York against Florida. That's all of our championships, all through hockey and basketball. Let's start with this. I know a lot of people right now are feeling absolutely flustered and disappointed with the Denver Nuggets in Game 7. Well, I will tell you this. The Denver Nuggets are not going away. Not for the next couple years. This is still a team that is going to be a problem for the next 5 years running. I think what's unfortunate is Minnesota caught them on a bad rap. And everybody all celebrated. Think about it. A lot of people and people that I've talked to very, very close by, they all were happy and excited, and they were thinking Denver was going to easily put this game away. You're at home. You're in the best place to be at. And Minnesota's like, oh, no, we ain't doing that. So my biggest takeaway is that right now, this is a team, Minnesota, that is catching fire and that is bound to be a problem for the next few years ahead between them and Denver. And I will make a point for you here. Boston, Indiana, and Dallas are not matching up to the level of competition Minnesota and the Denver Nuggets are. Thanks for flying United. Sorry to have to burst all your bubbles, but you are not matching up with that kind of competition at all. Both played very physical. Both had quality shooters, not to mention they controlled the paint in multiple spurts. That's why the entire matchup was a 7-game bloodbath. And to be honest with you, whether it was Denver or it was Minnesota, either one of those two, they both were showing signs of life back and forth. And it was a great series all through and through, from beginning to end. But Anthony Edwards took the game in his own hands. And even if he did not have a great scoring night, he adjusted and went full on defense. What do most teams end up doing these days? When you've got a very good offense, and let's say you're putting up as many points as possible, what's the other side doing? You are defending. You are stopping the opponent from potentially getting quality shots, from getting shots made in the bucket, and getting momentum to get back into the game. Defenses are there to shut that down. That's exactly with what they did. And so Minnesota, in a lot of areas, when Anthony Edwards was not on offensively, he transitioned and started working greatly at defense. And I think that's what's special about Anthony Edwards all the way through. Guy's got killer instincts. And however you thought the officiating was, didn't matter. Because in the end, refs are meant to swallow the whistle. So in many different spurts, I felt like in a lot of those cases, Anthony Edwards controlled the game. He controlled a lot of Minnesota's momentum, especially when it came to, you got to end up playing some box outs, especially when it comes to defense. And that's exactly what they did. They boxed out Jamal Murray and they pressurized him. They pressurized Nikola Jokic, and they went on a streak. They went on a run. So at this point now, when you watch Denver and Minnesota, they're practically alike because they both can catch on fire. They both could basically control their own destinies and control the state of the game, however that they decide to do this. But I think inarguably, this is the best looking Minnesota team I think I've ever seen. This is. I've watched Kevin Garnett's T-Wolves for years. KG was the best. But now I have collectively a team that can play just as great. And honestly, congrats to Minnesota. I don't think Dallas, in multiple areas, I don't think that they can contain this. If Luka is becoming a control freak on the floor when it comes to, he needs the ball in his hands, he's going to try to control how he sets up the offense. If that becomes the issue, Dallas will lose. Because it's not a one-man show. You got trustworthy pieces. Use them. Kyrie's been there. PJ Washington's playing really good postseason basketball. So there are many, many chances for Dallas to play well. But honestly, I feel like this could be a Minnesota in 6. That's the way that I look at the Western Conference right now. And I think inarguably, that's how I feel today. All right. The Stanley Cup playoffs, we're finally in both the conference championships from the West and the East. But I can tell you right now, nobody is stopping the New York Rangers. And I also feel like Dallas has been stopping a lot of hyper-aggressive offensive teams. Now, here's what I will take away from what I saw in the second round. It was fun for the Avalanche when it lasted, but Dallas was playing complete shutdown hockey. Like, they were not making it fair for Colorado at all. And Colorado just kind of gassed out, which a lot of teams that play with superior defenses like that, you're getting bodies up on a lot of shots and you're controlling exactly how you play out this whole thing. It makes sense. And in the end, Dallas is very aware of the kind of offenses that they're playing in their own conference. That's why, Edmonton won the game fair and square against Vancouver. They won the series. But I will tell you, Vancouver definitely took a really good leap. Rick Tocchet really turned this organization around, and the Canucks are going to be an interesting problem moving forward. I think we got the best of Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, even though that I hope for the best of his health, he's been playing very, very well. But even when you look at multiple other players on this roster, this is by far one of their best runs I think we've seen. Now, we know that the last time they were in the playoffs, they were a second-round exit as well. But I've got some hope for Vancouver. When you look at Florida and Boston, too much to contain. Florida fixed the problem that we know they had an issue with since last season. They got a lot more offensive pieces. Vladimir Tarasenko is healthy. So they've got a mixture of offense and veteran leadership. And so that's the way that they're playing this. But then you've got the New York Rangers that are an absolute train that is not stopping. And anybody that tries to get in their way, good luck. Because right now, great goaltending, great offense. I think at the same time, Peter Laviolette is just kind of riding this streak, however long that it's going to go. But playoff hockey, as I've said, the closer you get to the final, that is where all the questions that have been thrown around are finally getting answered. Dallas has a superior defensive mindset. Edmonton has a hyper-aggressive scoring team with suspect goaltending. Florida has a great cast of offensive players, but the biggest thing is, how consistent can that be? Because that's where the question mark, when you go to the New York Rangers, they got hyper-aggressive offense, but they've also have been playing pushing, shoving defense. They are pissing you off intentionally. That's what the Rangers are doing. They're trying to get into your head, get under your skin, and I'm sure they probably talk a lot of crap. But that's how it is. I mean, I watch Matt Rempe and multiple other players get into each other's faces. They want it. So this is where you really start to test the waters of who wants it more. So I think we got great series. I was right about both of them, even though that they were different outcomes, because I was wrong on the Colorado Avalanche against Winnipeg. I knew that for a fact. I was right on Dallas and Vegas. I was right on Edmonton and the Kings. I was right on Vancouver and Nashville. And all the way that we got up to this point, I had gotten a bunch of my picks right, except for Winnipeg and Colorado. That's it. But all of them was what I highly anticipated. Maple Leafs were not going to make that far because that was an absolute curveball, and it was an unlucky die that was thrown their way, and their first-round exit. I'll get into the coaching matters here in a second. But I think in the end, Pete DeBoer, Paul Maurice, and then you're looking at Peter Laviolette and the coach for Edmonton. Bring it on. This is going to be a lot of fun. But this is exactly what playoff hockey is meant to be. I think we got a great amount of hyper-aggressive offense. We got a lot of shutdown defense. We got really good goaltending. Jake Ottinger and Igor Shesterkin, Sergei Bobrovsky. I don't even know exactly who's going to be goaltending for Edmonton. But then you got head coaches, which makes all the difference. That's why I think, honestly, if you wanted my opinion up on this, I think this will be Dallas in 6. And if I looked at the Rangers and the Florida Panthers, that might be a solid 7 games because they both look equally matched. So I think it'll be interesting to say the least. But nonetheless, it's great. It's great throughout this whole throughout this whole playoff run. Good stuff. Playoffs for both NBA and the NHL have been spectacular. So I think in the end, Boston and Indiana, Boston is going to play superior defense. against that Indiana team that is very hyper-scoring in the fast. They're going to slow that down very significantly. And Boston, very smart with their shots. And then Minnesota and Dallas. Minnesota plays a lot of physical game. Dallas hardly does. So they might be pushing and shoving. But I think Boston in 6, and I think, honestly, Minnesota in 6. So I think this will be 6 games it'll take in this 7-game series, but exciting for all of them. But nonetheless, it'll be a lot more interesting, a lot more energetic, but I cannot wait for them through, all throughout it. Good stuff. Bottom half of it, Willard Thomas is going to be joining us here in just a moment, talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks. We got a lot of it going on, and especially with Major League Baseball still currently going on. I've told a lot of people I've already got trips planned up. I'll be there in 2 sporting stadiums. Be there in Coors Field in June, and then I will also be there at Empower Field in Mile High. Got a lot of great stuff, so cannot wait for either one of those. I'm super, super excited for all of those. All right, folks. Well, you've heard me talk about it so much, and now many people, many stars, including Marcellus Wiley and Michael Vick, many stars are catching on to BetUS, arguably one of the best betting apps on the market in 30 years. BetUS, we've been on fire all throughout the NBA playoffs, all throughout the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, and all through baseball season. And now, prop bets. The NFL is out. Over-unders for wins and losses. I will have my over-under losses for the AFC and for the NFC soon. Don't want to miss on that. But we've got many single parlay leg bets, prop bets, all to go around for you, just to include more of the excitement when choosing BetUS. We've also got casino games as well. Don't miss out on all that. Go on to BetUS.com. Link is in the description. BetUS, where the game begins. When you sign up $50 or more in your deposit, you'll get 200% bonus and 30 risk-free bets when joining on and becoming a member. BetUS, where the game begins.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Looking for a show with the best takes? Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Don't lose your seat to your next event when you choose SeatGeek.com. We got so many available seats for you of your choice. Your next sporting event, your next concert of your favorite artist, and so much more when you use SeatGeek.com promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off. All right, so I'm going to talk about this because two coaches, one got a contract extension, the other just got hired. So let's talk about the coach who just got hired, Craig Berube, now to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And honestly, this was a match made in heaven. Now, many people are not highly sold on Craig Berube, but here is what I will give you. What were the Toronto Maple Leafs in the last 7 seasons? They were underachievers. Could never get past the first round. They could be a real good hockey team all throughout the regular season, but they could never get over the top. And this was with a Mike Babcock as a head coach before his tenure was done. And this was with multiple coaches until you got to Sheldon Keefe, who's now fired. And I'll be honest with you, Sheldon Keefe was not the answer. I am looking for coaching stability. He was not giving me that. And I don't want to be negative, but this was not a fit with Sheldon Keefe at all with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It just was not. Because every time I looked at, the press conference, and anytime I looked over at the bench, Sheldon Keefe's not that strong. Not that strong of a coach. I need to hold a lot of my players accountable. Okay, Austin Matthews is in his prime. William Nylander is coming off of a great postseason, and he's coming off of a really good year. But how many times are we going to have the same similar excuses about this group? It's not working. By the way, Joseph Woll was real good during the postseason. He at the very least got a chance to make big-time stops, big-time saves, and was at least keeping the Maple Leafs in those games. Ilya Samsonov, I'm not putting the whole series on him. I think a lot of it was there was too many voices in the room and not a lot of straightforward communication. There was not. And you could clearly see that on the bench. Austin Matthews and William Nylander, they were all screaming and barking at Mitch Marner. And you look at Tyler Bertuzzi, he's only there for a year. So he's going to probably test the market. But Toronto right now, with Craig Berube, this is what he brings to the table. Craig Berube gives you stability. And he gives you structure, which is what the Maple Leafs needed. How many times have they gotten eliminated in the first rounds? They got eliminated in the first round by Montreal. Remember that series? They all thought they were big and bad. They all thought they were going to end up being the team to get all the way there, all that hype. And they lost in Game 7. Remember how many times they were unlucky when they had to face Boston several times? Boston And think about it this way. Remember when the Washington Capitals, for years and years and years, their kryptonite was the Pittsburgh Penguins? I feel the same way with the Toronto Maple Leafs when it comes to the Boston Bruins. The Bruins are their absolute kryptonite. That is their only gateway to success. That is their gateway to a championship. You have to beat Boston. They could not do that. Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark were really good goalie tandems for Boston while it lasted. And in the end, Boston was the better team. I mean, they went through so many different goaltenders. They went through Jack Campbell. They went through Frederick Anderson. They went through so many different goaltenders now. But I feel like Joseph Woll, there's something there. I think they might have found that goalie that could, at the very least, keep them in games, at least give them quality stops, and at least give trust to the offense for them to go and win those battles, win those faceoffs, win those shots. But I think Craig Berube, when he comes in, he was originally a Toronto Maple Leaf. So he's back home. And he knows how to manage this offense. But I think, to be honest with you, with Toronto's outlook throughout this offseason, you need to make a trade to get more. And honestly, your best bet is to trade away Mitch Marner. He's young. He's productive right now. Playoffs is a question mark, but you know what? I'm more sold on his value for right now because of his regular seasons. Okay, I'm sold on that. So I can get some draft capital. I can go and get quality players. Maybe I can go and get a goaltender, maybe, whether it's on the market or whether it may be on a trade. But it's time to really kind of get rid of one piece out of this group, because it's a wake-up call and it's a reminder to everybody on those lines. Your jobs are on the line. It is. Because there's no excuses for this. This has been years and years on end. The only time, last year when they made it to the second round, it felt like that was their Stanley Cup victory. But then they got eliminated because they got too cocky. They got way too excited. You need to be focused. And I think in the end, Craig Berube is going to do that. Because if you could take arguably one of the worst teams in St. Louis, turn that team around, and they win the cup, anything is possible. So I think Craig Berube, this is a very quality hire, and I think this really does make sense. Now let's move over to the coach who got the extension, Rod Brind'Amour. Many of you think Brind'Amour is never going to win a championship as a coach. And the question mark was, what do you do with him? So, if you fired Rod Brind'Amour, what other coaches would you have trusted right now in this market? Joel Quenneville apparently sounds like he wants to make a comeback into the coaching realm. I don't know if he's prepared for that. It's not the same as it once was in Chicago. But who knows? Maybe he might turn some heads. But Rod Brind'Amour as a coach, he has 194 wins, 76 losses, and 31 OTs. 194 and 76. That's from 2021 all the way to 24. Okay? That's what it is. And just the past season, Hurricanes were second in the Metropolitan. 52-23, 111 points. Goals against average was 2.57, fourth in the league. Their power plays was 26.9, and penalty kills was 86.4%. Second in the league in offense. First amongst all in penalty kills. They play great defense. That's not the problem. Unlike Toronto, Carolina has something to basically live for, and he's a quality coach. He keeps his players accountable, and even if he could not get over this hump, you do realize it's not that easy to get to the Stanley Cup final. It's not that easy. It really isn't. And Rod Brind'Amour is the best thing you got going for you. He knows this organization, knows it very well. And if you look at it from the Carolina Hurricanes from 2018 all the way to 24, these were his totals. 46-29, fourth in the Metropolitan, 8-7 in the postseason, lost in the conference final. 38-25, fourth in the Metro, 4-4, lost in the first round of Boston. 36-12, first in the Central. That was with the adjustment from the COVID period. 5-6, lost in the second round to Tampa Bay. 54-20, first in the Metropolitan. 7-7, lost in the second round of the Rangers. 52-21, first in the Metropolitan. 8-7, lost in the conference finals. And then this year, 52-23, second in the Metropolitan. 6-5, lost in the second round. So in 6 playoff appearances, he's 38-36. Has a win percentage of just about 500. Rod Brind'Amour is arguably one of the best coaches, one of the many coaches who's capable of getting there to the playoffs and is capable of winning. Since 2018, the Carolina Hurricanes have been very viable amongst many teams in the league. And he's been to the conference finals twice. He has been to the second round 3 times and lost in the first round. Once. One time. I know a lot of you Carolina fans are impatient and are tired of losing. But the last thing you want to do is you want to can the coach for the wrong reasons. Again, you go on to that market. Who are you trusting as a head coach moving forward? I'm not trusting multiples because right now their coaching philosophies are different. You do not want to break this band away. I think for Carolina, they'll be fine. They're going to make some adjustments. This is a team that's not going away for a very long time. And Brind'Amour will have his shot and his opportunity. Be patient. I know lots and lots of fan bases sometimes influence the idea of firing the coach for multiple reasons because, we can't get over the hump. But you had a loaded team. You got a great defense. You got a great passing offense. Sebastian Aho is ridiculous. And everybody else ended up showing up. Martin Necas, Andrei Svechnikov. There's been multitudes of ways that the Carolina Hurricanes have been playing at their absolute best. They've never fallen short of mediocre. So remember and remind yourselves that if you fired this coach tomorrow, is it worth the risk? Is it worth it because you cannot get past the second round when you're playing a tough team like the Rangers, who are an absolute train that's not stopping? Or you're facing against last year, you played Florida and you lost that conference championship that got Florida into the final. And mind you, they were playing with their hair on fire because Paul Maurice fit the system. Be patient, Carolina. Be patient, Raleigh. Your time will come. but it was the smartest move. And I think the organization all said, we love Brindamore. He's not going anywhere. We trust him. And he has never given us short of anything. If you saw 2, maybe 3 years of mediocrity and you're missing the playoffs, absolutely you'd fire him because the tenure, he's just burnt out. But I am not firing my coach for these multitude of reasons. You will get there. I mean, like I said, Toronto has a great team. And I think Craig Berube will align this group. But I'm serious. I think you need to make a trade of this group. And I'm feeling like you trade away Mitch Marner, you go get a goaltender maybe, or you go get one in the market, but you need to get some capital. You need to open up some cap. And I think in the end, I mean, Austin Matthews is in his prime. Nylander is in his prime. John Tavares, hopefully he can figure it out, but even he's still in his prime. They have to have a shaker in the room to really make things interesting. But that's what Craig Berube's meant to do. When you take one of the worst teams in 2019 with the St. Louis Blues, and all of a sudden you go on a streak and you win a cup, and against a tough Boston team, that's unheard of. But that is pure coaching. So I think these were the perfect situations for Toronto, and it was the best thing that can happen for Carolina, because you do not want to end up getting off that wagon of winning your division or even coming up close in your division, going into the playoffs, and then being an absolute playoff threat. Be patient. These things take time, and we know that competitions normally are changing every single year. That's why I'm like, don't bash on Denver because they lost to Minnesota. They are still going to be a problem for the next 5 years. Minnesota's just playing with their hair on fire. And Anthony Edwards is an absolute silent assassin. He's just playing that right now. So relax, be patient, don't overreact. Things are going to be fine. So I'll tell you what. I mean, like I said, baseball season currently going on. Absolutely been loving with what I've been seeing. And the team last year that got into the World Series, primed for bigger successes for this up-and-coming season. I am super excited for what will happen with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So joining me, Millard Thomas. All right, so, I mean, this was probably one of the most magical seasons last season gave us, because we were going into a rookie season with Corbin Carroll, and we were kind of coming into like a team that not a lot of people have done a ton of research, and then all of a sudden, this team just exploded, and they got to the World Series. I haven't felt a vibe like this since 2001. And I was there. I was there watching it from my television. Greatest World Series I think we've ever seen in our lifetime. What was that? Take me back to that. When the Diamondbacks got thus far, proving doubters and proving a lot of just, eye rollers wrong. Like, this is definitely something to get excited, because there is something special about this team.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me on your show today. The entire run was crazy because, you come into the season, you're like, all right, we just want a feel-good season. D-backs show some progression, kind of like where the Cincinnati Reds are this year. A young team on the rise, win around 78 to around a 500 record. That would have been a good season for the D-backs last year. But then the first half of the season, they were leading the NL West, tied with the Dodgers at the All-Star break. So you're like, okay, I have to kind of reevaluate my expectations for this D-backs team. Corbin Carroll, one of the best players in baseball immediately. Ketel Marte bounced back. You had Kelly, you had Gallen. You had a full squad last year. Gabriel Moreno, Lourdes Gurriel, those were great acquisitions as well. But then you get to the second half of the season, and the D-backs did the exact opposite of what they did in the first half. In the second half, post-All-Star break, they were one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball in the second half last season, and they kind of just limped their way to the postseason. It was not inspiring at all. They clinched their postseason berth on a day that they lost to the Houston Astros. So it wasn't like even a big celebration when they did make the playoffs, when they clinched, because they only made it because another team lost, and that got them into the postseason. And so for the D-backs, after seeing their whole second half, you're like, I really don't know how much I should trust this team. They were incredible in the first half, but now the 3-month sample size of this team being absolutely bad. And so it's like, you get to the postseason, what should my expectations be for the D-backs? Should I lean more into what I saw in the first half of the season, or is the recent memory of what the D-backs did the last 2 months more translatable to what we're going to see in the postseason? And for the D-backs, I was like, listen, make it past the wild card round, and you have had a great season. I thought they were good enough to beat Milwaukee, because I never thought Milwaukee was that great anyway. They had a couple elite pitchers, but that offense on paper was never that good. So I was like, D-backs are at least can match up with Milwaukee, and I think they could beat Milwaukee, but that's where their postseason is going to end. They're going to get swept by the LA Dodgers in the very next round, and it's still going to be an incredible D-back season. That didn't happen. The D-backs beat the Brewers. Then they go into LA. They dominate Clayton Kershaw in that game 1. You have that 4 home run inning in that finale. And then against the NLCS Philadelphia Phillies, you have to go back to Philadelphia. You have to win 2 games in Philly. After that game 5 in Arizona, Jeff Passan was tweeting, hey, they started the wave out in Arizona. This series a wrap. D-backs got to go back to Philadelphia, and it's a wrap. Mad Dog Russo was on his show. No chance the D-backs go back and beat Philly. I'll retire the very next day if they come back and beat Philadelphia in Philly. What did the D-backs do? They come back and they have 2 fantastic games in Philadelphia, shock the fans. Brendan Pfaadt, the rookie, steps up in that game 7. Now the D-backs are going to the World Series. Now at that point, you're like, they already beat the Brewers. They already swept the Dodgers. They took down Philly and Philly. You're like, at this point, the D-backs can do anything. I'm putting all my eggs in the basket that the D-backs are going to win the World Series. Obviously, that didn't happen. I still think if Paul Sewald doesn't blow the first game of the World Series, maybe we're looking at something different if the D-backs go up 2-0 in Texas. I feel like the series changes if Merrill Kelly still has that dominant performance in game 2. But regardless, D-backs blew away expectations that anyone put on them last year. It was a feel-good season. It feels like they were ahead of schedule, but I'm sure you want to talk about this year, because the vibes that we're feeling right now as D-backs fans in 2024, the exact opposite of what we were feeling on May 21st in 2023.
It's funny because, and a lot of people, and look, I grew up a baseball guy. I mean, it's in my DNA. I've always loved watching baseball. I mean, I got my mother from Long Island who loves the Yankees. And then, of course, my old man, he loves the Dodgers. And so I grew up watching a lot of that baseball because it was like I'm hanging out with my grandfather. It's storytelling. There's always something that I could get interested in when I pop on the television and watch a little baseball. But the funny thing is that it's insanity, because when people thought, oh, this World Series is going to be a snooze fest, I'm like, I think that way. You don't know baseball, because in the end, you got 2 teams, one that ain't had a World Series in 20 years, and then another one who's yet to have a World Series in their franchise. So it's like, I got the best of both. How can we not get excited for this? So when you look at this with this young roster, because it felt a lot like it was a lot of young pieces that were starting to kind of come together. Corbin Carroll. I feel like, Christian Walker, he's in his prime. I got, Lourdes Gurriel, he's in his prime. So all these young cast of characters now on this Arizona roster. You got a taste of the World Series last season. They are so hungry for higher expectations this season. Am I right?
Yeah, I honestly thought that the D-backs going to the World Series last year, I thought they were going to carry that momentum into this season, and especially losing that World Series, I would have expected them to have a chip on their shoulder this entire year to get back there and redeem themselves. I think that they do. The only issue is the offense can't hit, the rotation is hurt, and the bullpen has been shaky. So it's like, I go into the offseason, Mike Hazen, he hit everything on the wish list. We thought he upgraded third base with Eugenio Suarez. So far, defensively, he's looked great. Offensively, it's been a bust. He signed Jock Peterson and Randall Grichuk to be the DHs. That has been a fantastic move. Erod, we have yet to see him debut for the D-backs. Jordan Montgomery, I think he's been pretty good this season. He's had some shaky starts, but for the most part, I thought the D-backs crushed it this offseason. So it's like you were a year ahead of the schedule, already going to the World Series. Now you added 2 All-Stars to your rotation. You added a better third baseman. You added legit power hitters to your DH. Why should this team not be better in 2024? And right now, there's a lot of variables to it, but you just go up and down the lineup. Lourdes Gurriel, after his hot start to the season, has been horrendous the last 20-plus games. Eugenio Suarez has been bad the entire year. Corbin Carroll, the man who had 25-plus home runs, 50 stolen bases last year. First time a major league player has ever done that before in their rookie season. He has been one of the worst players in Major League Baseball this season, and that's not hyperbole. If you look at the D-backs offense in the month of May, their best player is Kevin Newman, and that should never be the case. I like the fact that Kevin Newman is carrying in the month of May, but he should be the 6th, 5th best D-backs player during this month. He should not be by far and away the best player in the lineup. The rotation, Gallen's been great the whole season, but guys that you needed to step up in the rotation with some of those injuries like the Kellys and the Erods. Slade, we just saw him get lit up for 6 earned runs in his first start against the Dodgers. He's given up at least 6 earned runs in 3 of his last 4 starts. Ryan Nelson hasn't been good. When you look at the bullpen, who can you trust outside of a Ryan Thompson, a Paul Sewald? Kevin Ginkel was the man last year for the D-backs as the go-to setup guy. He just has not been consistent at all this season for the D-backs. So when you look at the 2024 Arizona team, last year, they got so many like career years out of guys and just good seasons out of the Lourdes Gurriel. And for some reason this year, the Gurriels, the Gabbies, the Carrolls, up and down the rotation and bullpen, they're just not getting the same performances. And I don't really know what to do. The D-backs just have to play better if they ever want to turn it around and potentially get back to, another World Series.
Well, and we can tell you, and like to me, I've always loved, the baseball superstition because with me, it's like anything can happen in this game. It's unpredictable, and to be honest, I mean, the good thing of it is you're not far down below the well like we're seeing right now with where I live at in Denver with the Colorado Rockies. Yeah. But, in the end, 10 games behind, the Dodgers. But in the end, I've always thought of it this way. April, May, and June, potentially half the season of July is where you kind of get, you get the fun out the way. It's usually when baseball's back, we're seeing different names, we're kind of getting an idea what we're looking at. But then the bottom half of July all the way to August, September, October, that's when things get kicking. So from last season where the team looked really good up in the first half, not as hot in the second half, superstitious thought, could we maybe see an opposite? And is that something Torey Lovullo has kind of kept in the back of his mind this year?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the saving grace and the working theory for a lot of D-backs fans in general, because you kind of hope by the All-Star break, like Erod should be back in like hopefully 3 weeks. Perdomo should be back in the same time frame, as well as Alec Thomas. Merrill Kelly probably won't be back to the All-Star break. So to go along with your theory, you're hoping post All-Star break, you start the second half with a rotation of Gallen, Kelly, Erod, Montgomery, and Fott. Like if you have all 5 of those healthy, it's like you have the Infinity Gauntlet if you're Thanos. Now the lineup, you just have to hope that in the second half of the season, some of those guys wake up, because Corbin Carroll last year, way better in the first half than he was in the second half. So like you're saying, hopefully some of these things can just flip. Last year, D-backs were so elite in the first half, slumped in the second half. Maybe that could flip this season. And then your other point that you mentioned, that third wild card spot, kind of wide open. If you're the D-backs, you already know. Just get in and you feel like you can make the magic happen once again. But you're going to have to get in, and it's going to be tough because that third wild card spot probably will come down to an NL West team, either the San Diego Padres or the San Francisco Giants. I don't think either team is like a world beater, or I don't even know if they're like true World Series contenders, but I am scared of them of stealing that last spot from the D-backs. But if the D-backs can turn it around, I do think they have more talent than anyone else who's in competition for that third wild card spot right now.
Yeah, and so mentioning about the National League West, because as of right now, I know everybody is basically like, oh, brother, LA does it again. Shohei Ohtani and Tyler Glasnow. I will be there at the game June 17th in Coors Field when they play the Rockies because I have no business with the Rockies at all. But Coors is beautiful. Love, seeing the scenery there in that ballpark. But I'm getting a good look, and I'm always looking with a lot of teams of like, what's interesting? What are some of the things I kind of have to look at? Are there some cracks in there that could potentially be a problem somewhere in the middle of or down the stretch during the season? So when you look at the competition in the National League West, we know that the Dodgers, they loaded up. It's a World Series or bust kind of year. To me personally, I feel like this is a problem for 10 years. If you're really looking at it from a long-term standpoint, the Padres they fleeced Miami with getting Luis Ariz, but it's like the competition is very much brewing up. And so when you are the D-backs, regardless of this current slump, I think they got to have this to where it's like, listen, we know competition is really heating up, but it will not justify what we basically have pulled off by the time we were up and in the postseason. I think that's kind of safe to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at this NL West, I mean, the San Diego Padres, they're not afraid to make moves. Like, you can't sleep on this division. Yes, I think the D-backs are more talented than probably the Padres, but they still got Dylan Cease, the number one in the rotation. Yu Darvish is actually having himself a fantastic year. And then if Joe Musgrove can turn it around, like, that's still a very elite 1 through 3 in your rotation. And like you said, they already made one upgrade this in season by going out there and acquiring a Luis Ariz, who just hits 350 for an entire season, like one of the best pure hitters in Major League Baseball. The Giants, on paper, entering every season, I'm never scared of the Giants. I never feel like their talent level is as good as the way people talk about them. But then you get to the end of the season, I'm like, dang, they're right there in that wild card mix. They can make a move if they want and get aggressive and probably push themselves over the edge. They need Blake Snell to kind of a bounce back, but they're always better than I think the talent shows on paper. They always play above expectations. And so you're going to have your Dodgers. They're going to run away with the division, and that's okay. You let the Dodgers take the division. They're the NL West Kings. We don't care about the regular season division titles. We'll see the Dodgers in the postseason just like we did last year. But for that third wild card spot, I'm definitely concerned with the San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants, especially the Padres, because we know that boy, AJ Preller, their GM, he's not afraid to trade the Hall if it means bringing back a superstar.
So outside of the division, because we know that the National League as a whole has basically been upgrading. We know that the Cubs right now, Shota Imanaga right now is having a Cy Young winning season right now. And I mean, the Brewers are just always questionable to me because they could lose pieces, and yet all of a sudden, William Contreras is going on a tear. And then you look at the Braves, and they're the Braves. I mean, they're going to load up just almost as similarly with the Dodgers. Are there any other concerns outside this division you kind of look into, even with that third wild card spot that could be an issue?
If I had to pick a dark horse team, I guess, in the National League outside the NL West, I don't think I would pick an NL Central team. I definitely expect either the Cubs or Brewers to get one of the wild card spots. I will say the Brewers are way better than I would have expected this year, especially after trading Corbin Burns. Like you said, they're just one of those teams that feels like they lose talent every year, but somehow remain status quo. I don't get it. Great job over there by them. But I would say the team that would scare me the most, maybe in the second half if they get healthy, would be the team that I compared the D-backs to earlier on this podcast, the Cincinnati Reds. I think they're just way loaded with talent. Now, I think it could be too early in their timeline, but in the second half, if they get hot with the Dela Cruzes, and then you get like a Matt McClain back, and your Spencer Steers heat up, and your Encarnacion Strands heat up, then that rotation has been very good this year with the Ashcrafts and the Hunter Green. It feels like that lineup and that rotation feels like people are starting to develop and take that next step forward in their progression. I don't know if this year is going to be the year that the Reds make the postseason. I still think they'll hover around 500. I'll say they win like 79, 80 games this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got hot in the second half of the season and they were the team that came for that third wildcard spot and stole it from the rest of the NL West.
So a question I've always asked a lot of people who have covered, specific Major League Baseball teams, but it all kind of comes around in the same circle. because I've asked this. I don't think I have ever seen a more horrifying look with umpire play like I have this year. And I think most of this is it's kind of proving a point. Are they doing this because they want to speed the process of, the automatic strike zone that everybody keeps, kind of screaming and hollering like we need this right now? And then in the end, I mean, look, I already know with this whole Angel Hernandez thing, the worst thing you could do was give so much to the umpires union that now you're just trapped. I mean, what has been your thoughts with the umpire play? I just felt like, look, I can deal with a few horrific calls. And I mean, I know a lot of people kind of feel the same way about the NFL when it comes to certain flags and certain penalties. But at this point, this is probably the most horrifying I think I've seen. I've got both managers getting thrown out. Like, what seems to be the issue?
Yeah, umps have been horrendous for years, and I think they're just making a case right now. Like, yeah, guys, like it's the end of days for our union, so let's just go out there and just call it how we see it. Like, it don't even matter what we say anymore; they're gonna replace us anyway. So maybe they're just kind of doing it out of spite right now because you see the new rules that they already implemented with the pitch clock and some other things. Like, it's been a huge success. Like the pace of play for baseball games right now, like even that Dodgers game 1, like that was a quick, snappy game. Despite 10 runs being scored. So we love the pace of play right now. We love all the new rules, and robo umps are definitely coming to baseball. And I think a big issue people have had is just when you see such an egregious call and there's just nothing you can do about it. When it's bases loaded, bottom of the 8th, bottom of the 9th, and your star player's up at the plate and he just strikes out on a ball that's 3 feet off the plate. And it's like, what are you even doing here if you're the umpire? Why are you getting paid? And then you can't do anything about it if you're the fan, if you're the player, the manager. All you can do is go out there, yell your head off at the ump, and then get ejected for the rest of the game. So it's like there was no solutions to like have that closure if you were a player or a fan. So I think with the automatic ball strike system, I think it's going to curtail a lot of issues that we have with the umpires. I think it will actually speed up the game even more because you will take out all that unnecessary arguing. There won't be any more arguments. If you think a ball strike is called wrong, you just challenge it, and then within seconds you would know what the correct call is. So I'm actually so excited. I love every new rule MLB implements. I think it helps the game. I'm all about the evolution of the game, and I'm just happy to see baseball finally get out of some of their old stuck ways.
Yeah, my only hope is that, the question mark will be like, what do we do about the lengths of the season? Because we know that, the NBA and NHL, they've been in several conversations about that. I've always said this was my kind of theory with this is I think if you take out the 62 games and give me 50 half the season to where I know I've got that all-star break right there in between, and then you've got that remaining 50, that will still give me an even balance to where it's not so long. It's not like dreading so long to where these players, we know that their recovery times are different than other sports. And so I think if you do that, hell, baseball could be very much on the right tracks. They may not trump the NFL when it comes to viewership and sellers market and, and streaming, but hopefully they could be on the right path to where they're not on a potential downfall when it comes to this. That's my only hope of it. So, my friend, covering the Diamondbacks for as long as you have and covering a major sport in the state of Arizona, okay, and now has 3 major sport teams, the Suns, the Diamondbacks, and the Cardinals.
We did lose one. I work for the Coyotes, RIP.
And I got to tell you, man, I mean, what was the fan base vibe when it comes to Arizona sports? Because we know that the biggest thing was it's hockey in the desert, all until the Vegas Golden Knights were born. And then all of a sudden, the market started changing from here on out. I feel bad for many Coyote fans for multiple reasons because, number one, you are playing amongst a collegiate arena with Arizona State, with no disrespect to them. But it's like, it just didn't have a good look and a good feel. And then all of a sudden, they talked about, we found some land in Scottsdale. And then all of a sudden, the Scottsdale mayor's like, we are not just sharing our water source and none of that. And then all of a sudden now the team's going to Salt Lake. And so I'm like, this just has not felt so good for at least for the players, the fan base, and many people like yourself that have worked around the team. But what was that energy? I mean, just covering a team in Arizona and even just being a fan of from previously all 4 sports teams to now having 3. Like, how so invested these fans are, and then now having this bittersweet moment, winning the last game of potentially ever for the Coyotes.
Yeah, I think, I love Arizona fans. I think they do a good job of showing up. Maybe not always when their teams aren't in the postseason, but when the teams are good in Arizona, you can expect Arizona fans in the building. Tough to see the Coyotes go, but may not be the end of it. The Coyotes are still in play to get the auction. I still am employed, so I still got to talk positive about my team. So they're still working to get the team back, hopefully in 5 years or less. So hold out hope like I am that it's not the end of the Arizona Coyotes just yet, just a temporary. We'll see you soon. We'll see you later.
Yeah, believe me, I'm crossing my fingers, holding my hope that this is not, this is not a forever goodbye. This is until at some point next time we're back in it, because, in the end, I mean, a lot of people have been asking for, the Atlanta Thrashers to come back and then all this stuff. So we'll see, man. It's going to be very interesting. But again, I think when Arizona sports is on it, they're very competitive. They're very energized. I've yet to catch a game in Chase Field, but I've heard many great things about the ballpark. It's such a great, watch. And then in the end, it's definitely affordable, because I ain't paying $500 on a nosebleed when I'm in LA. No, and I'm paying that man's contract, and especially when you got new international money along the way. So, Millard, really great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Where can everybody find you to find those slithering serpientes that we call the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Yes, please follow the show account wherever you stream podcasts on all streaming platforms. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Follow my personal account at CreatorThomas24 on Twitter, or Millard.Thomas123 on Instagram. Updates, I'm going to the games, doing it all. So please follow me on all the socials, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram as well.
Beautiful, man. Millard, thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate the time. We'll see what happens with the Diamondbacks. But again, magical moments can always happen when you think about it in the game of baseball, man. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Have a good night, sir.
Absolutely. It is an interesting thing. And again, the Diamondbacks, they wowed us all. It was a fun World Series last season. And, in the end, I mean, you're playing, again, you're playing with either you want to be the best team in the first half or you want to be an even greater team in the second half. But he's not wrong about it. And I mean, yeah, they're off to a shaky start. I think a bunch of teams really, really are. But it's going to be up to Torey Lovullo how he figures this out. And I think, the Diamondbacks, it proved a lot of doubters wrong, and they went on that great postseason run. So we'll see. Let's see if they can do it again. But I got a lot of positive hopes. But I'll tell you what, though, like I said, you could hear it from a lot of Arizona fans when it comes to the Coyotes. It is. And I feel very bad, but hopefully I'm crossing my fingers as much as he is as well, hoping that this is not the final, goodbye for hockey in the desert. I'm hoping that they do come back at some point soon. All right, folks, that's going to do it here for me tonight. Millard Thomas, appreciate him taking the time. Locked on Diamondbacks. Great stuff. Great lineups, always cooking up, always coming through in the clutch, and that is what we are about here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Live on Roku, iHeartRadio, and many social media platforms. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button. Keep you up to date on future and past episodes, because you never know who else we might have on our interview list that we cannot wait to have here on the show. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with me. Take care, you guys. We will see you in the next edition of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone.